My name is Mackenzie O'Hara, and I will be your host for today's broadcast. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience technical issues at any point today, please press the F5 key on your PC keyboard or the refresh keys on your Mac to refresh. That typically resolves most issues. It's also recommended that you close out other programs on your computer, such as email, to ensure you have the maximum bandwidth to view the program. If you continue to experience challenges, please send us a message using the Q&A tab for technical assistance, and we will work with you in the background. A special thank you to everyone who submitted questions through our webinar registration form. We received hundreds of questions, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible at the conclusion of the presentation. Please also feel free to submit questions at any time using the Q&A tab. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to cover the CIA certification program. We'll go through a CIA exam overview, and then we'll move into some exam preparation and the CIA learning system. We will cover study and test taking tips, and then we have some links and resources for you. And then, as I stated before, time permitting, we will go through some questions. With that, I'd like to introduce your speakers for today. I'll be covering the beginning of the presentation. Again, my name is Mackenzie O'Hara. I am a project manager within the certifications department at IIA Global in Lake Mary, Florida. With me is Vicki McIntyre. Vicki is the president of First Plus Resolutions and has helped CIA candidates successfully pass their exams for more than 14 years, having taught the IIA's CIA learning system extensively. Vicki is a globally recognized educator and trainer who has a combination of internal audit, financial management, public accounting, regulatory supervision, and compliance management experience. With more than 20 years in the financial services industry, she has been a regulatory bank examiner and a vice president of both finance and risk management. She also performs quality assessments and independent validations of internal audit activities. Vicki is a passionate advocate for the internal audit profession, has been an IIA volunteer leader for more than 25 years, and was recently a member of the IIA's North American Board of Directors. We are thrilled to have her with us today. Let's begin. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited about all the interest in the CIA program. We are well over 185,000 CIAs awarded globally. And in fact, we plan on celebrating the 200,000 mark here pretty soon in a couple of months. There's so many benefits to earning credentials, but in terms of the CIA, of course, there's credibility and respect in the field that comes with it. It is, designed to open opportunities for advancement. With any certification or continued education, there's a potential to increase your wages. When you earn something like the CIA, you are proving your willingness to invest in yourself, in your career, in your commitment to your profession. Of course, it will help improve your internal audit skills and knowledge as you study and then continuously learn to maintain your designation. And of course, very importantly, helps to build confidence in your knowledge of the profession. So the CIA has entry and exit requirements. Depending on, if you look at the left side of the screen, depending on the level of education that you have, it will change the experience requirement. So the higher education you have, you will be required to have slightly less experience by the time you finish the program. So again, you just look, maybe you have a master's degree, you'll need your proof of education, you'll need a government issued ID, and then you'll have 3 years to complete the program. And by the time you finish, you will have to complete the amount of experience it shows on the right-hand side of the chart. The experience can come in a number of ways. There's just some topics that we accept listed on the screen, but for more information, of course, please visit the website. And for even more specific information, you can open a case in CCMS, which we'll cover a little bit more about that shortly. I do want to get a gauge for the audience. How many of you have already applied for the CIA certification program, and how many of you have not yet applied? Okay, we'll just give it a couple more seconds. All right. Very, very cool. Okay. So in terms of the certification process, for those of you who have not yet applied, you will, as I mentioned before, we have a system called CCMS. You will create an account in CCMS. You can find the link to CCMS on our website, of course. You will log in and you will click Apply for Certified Internal Auditor. You will pay the applicable application fee. There are discounts for students and discounts for IIA members, as you can see on the screen. And then you will upload your government issued ID. As I stated before, that is one of the entry requirements. All right, so once you apply, you will submit all of your documentation like that government issued ID, and you will wait for approval into the program. Once you receive your approval, you will have a 3-year window to take and pass all 3 CIA parts. We do use scaled scoring. So that just means that each question is weighted differently. So we can't say you need X amount of questions to pass the exam. You need 600 points out of 750 points to pass the exam. Once you pass all 3 exams, you will have to complete the experience requirement that we discussed, which is an exit requirement. Once you submit proof of that, you will become a certified internal auditor. Okay, so some important information here on the fees. We do have a scheduled price increase that is coming the 1st of July, so in just under 2 months. So if you have not applied or registered for your next exam, I would encourage you to do so now before the price increase goes into effect. So again, before July 1st, you can still benefit from the current pricing. So we have the member and the non-member pricing listed on the screen. We have the current pricing, and then we also have the increased price that will take effect July 1st. Next question, again, just to get a gauge of the audience. When are you planning to take your CIA exam part, your next part? Or maybe it's your first part within the next 6 months, within the next year, or maybe you haven't decided yet. Okay, give it just a few more seconds here. A couple more answers coming in. Okay, almost everybody within the next 6 months. That's great news. It really is, because we have the price increase coming in just under 2 months. And then many of you may know we do have some updates coming to the CIA exams next year. So I would encourage everybody to take, maybe one or two parts, possibly even all three before the updates. All right, moving on. As I stated before, we have a transition coming to the CIA exam. As many of you probably know, the Global Internal Audit Standards were updated and the new version of them were published in January. So they have been live for a few months. They will take effect January 2025. So they're on our website now. You can read them, you can learn them, and they will take effect January 2025. They will be public for 12 months before they take effect. The CIA syllabi are currently being updated to reflect the new standards. So later this month, we intend on releasing the new syllabi on our website with updates that reflect the new standards. And those syllabi are what we will use to update the CIA exams next year. So the exams will not be updated any sooner than May of 2025, so 12 months from now. That date is subject to change, but it will not be any sooner. It just could get delayed potentially. And we have a lot of information on this. So we have FAQs, we have candidate scenarios, we have the exam release schedule by language, all on the link shown on the screen. So that's the iia.org/CIA 2025. I do want to stress all dates on that website are subject to change, but nothing will be moved any earlier than what is listed on the website. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the current syllabi. If you take your exams in the next 12 months, it will be based off the current syllabi. So the topics are shown on the screen. There's much more detail listed on the website. You can view the entire syllabus for each exam part. These are just an overview. So I'll let you kind of look at that. And again, you can find some more information on this on the website. One thing I do want to point out, part 3 is where you're going to see more of that IT, the information security topics. That is going to be one of the big differentiators from parts 1 and 2, is that part 3 has more of that IT component. Okay. So the traditional CIA, all 3 parts, is published in many languages. We're really proud of this. The CIA is truly a global designation. Like I said, we're nearing almost 200,000 CIAs that have been awarded globally. And all of the languages that we currently offer are listed on the screen. So you can test in any language that you choose. All right, another question, just to get a gauge for the audience. Which of the following certifications do you currently hold, if any? Are you a chartered accountant? Are you a CPA, a US CPA? Are you a CISA by any chance, or maybe none of the above? We'll let some answers come in. Okay, we have some accountants. Again, let some more answers come in. Give you just a few seconds here. If you are an accountant or a CISA, we do have some exciting information to share on the next slide, but I'll give it just a few more minutes. Or seconds, sorry. All right. Great. Great. So we definitely have some accountants and we have a few CISAs with us today. So if you are a chartered accountant, a CPA, or a CISA, we have a CIA challenge exam for you. So the challenge exam is a 1-part exam. We have 2 of them. So if you're a CISA, you'll take the CISA challenge exam. If you are an accountant, you'll take our accounting body challenge exam. So there's 2 separate exams. It is a one-part exam where we remove the information you've already been tested on, either on your CISA or your accounting licensure exams. And we only test you on the remaining content. That's how we're able to get it down to one exam. The other cool thing about the challenge exam is it is a bundle. So what that means is you pay one price and you receive your application, your exam registration, and study materials all included for one price. As always, there is a discount for IIA members. We always encourage membership before applying to one of our programs. You'll get access to the standards to help you study. You'll have access to 1,000 practice questions. It's different if you apply for the CISA exam than if you apply for the Chartered Accountant exam. The practice questions are different. And you have up to 3 years in that program. So specifically in regards to the Qualified Accountant Challenge exam, there's over 20 accounting bodies that we accept into this program. So we take US CPAs, we take Canadian accountants, we have a partnership with ACCA and many, many others. If you visit our website and you look for the challenge exam page, all of the accounting bodies are listed so you can see if the one that you are a part of is approved for this program. So I'll give you just a second there if you want to scan that QR code. That'll take you right to that page. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about CCMS. If you do have any questions about the challenge exam, you have questions about applying into the program or the experience requirement, you'll go ahead and make a CCMS profile, like I said. Once you log in, when you click the Help tab, you'll see a button that says Open a New Case. We have a dedicated team in the certifications department that handles certifications related questions. So when you open that case, they can help you with whatever specific question that you might have. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Vicki, to go over the CIA learning system and some exam prep and study tips.
Well, thank you, Mackenzie. It's my privilege to be with you all today. And I just want to really encourage all of you to get all 3 exam parts behind you prior to, I would say, January of next year. You want to be choosing your study materials now, and you want to be committing to a very systematic, disciplined program of study, much like you were taking an independent self-study course in college for each of the 3 parts. That way, if you get your studying behind you and you take your part 1 exam and then you take your part 2 exam, and maybe you fall short, maybe you defer success until another exam attempt, then you'll have plenty of window of opportunity to still retake that exam before the exam changes, potentially as early as May of next year. And the reason I say that is because most of us who are working in the profession, we've been working under the current Red Book standards for about 7 or 8 years. The standards that we're currently working under were effective January 1 of 2017. So, you know, it's best to be studying what you already know and the way that you are already practicing in the profession of internal auditing, rather than confusing things with the new global internal audit standards, which will, you know, comprise the exam questions sometime after 1 year from now. So I just want to encourage you to get it done sooner rather than later. And there's a lot of good reasons for doing that. So the CIA exam preparation, then, we want to look at the IIA's CIA learning system. The The learning system captures the IIA's professional knowledge and training and certification expertise. It allows you to develop your personalized study path. It allows you to understand, based on kind of a diagnostic tool, it allows you to understand your strengths and weaknesses before you even begin studying, so that you can pick and choose the exam topics really in any order, and just work through those areas where you're really struggling or where you're not so clear on your understanding of the standards and guidance, and customize your study process. The learning system has small little micro-learning content segments. So that makes it really easy to just, carve out 10 or 15 minutes of time and really hit a particular topic hard and, master your understanding of that topic and then go on to something else at a later time. Embedded within the learning system, there are links that take you directly to additional IIA guidance. So beyond the standards, there's also all kinds of white papers and global technology audit guides and other supplemental guidance that are going to help you tremendously in understanding what is intended by the standards and the practical application of the standards in the professional practice of internal auditing. Also, the learning system is structured so that it is very user-friendly on your mobile devices. And then you can choose to do self-study, and a lot of people are doing that, especially since COVID. I've taught the IIA's CIA learning system for many, many years in many different environments. I've taught through colleges and universities. I've taught for private corporate clients. I've taught this curriculum all over the world. Like I said, private corporate clients through the IIA and their, learning department. But I'm finding that since COVID, particularly, more and more people are choosing to use a self-study approach to master the content on the CIA exam syllabi. You might want to do self-study. You might want to choose an instructor-led course. And the IIA has a lot of courses coming up. You can find them on the IIA.org. Just go to the learning tab and you'll see the drop down for seminars and conferences and specific courses, and you can easily find the courses there. You might have group training opportunities through your own organization. That's usually larger internal audit activities. In larger organizations, they will very often have their own customized maybe instructor-led through a virtual delivery channel or perhaps in a live classroom, in your offices. So a lot of opportunities, a lot of different delivery channels, and a lot of ways to learn. So here we have examples. For self-study, it is online, it's remote ready. You have all of the tools and resources right on your laptop or your iPad. There is the entire curriculum. It's just a soft copy. It's not a hard copy book. You can pace yourself. You can schedule your study time however it is best for you, for your life and your priorities. It's convenient and it's mobile optimized. For the instructor-led courses, again, through the IIA, we have top-tier CIA instructors. Many of them, for example, I led a task force to revise the curriculum about 3 or 4 years ago. So many of us have worked in the profession for many decades, and the group that forms the CIA syllabus and the exam questions come from academics and practitioners, from regulators. So they're coming from every aspect of internal audit practice. So again, the IIA has top-level CIA instructors. And with an instructor-led course, whether it's virtual delivery or whether it is in a live classroom, you'll have a structured syllabus and you'll have opportunities for conversations with your peers to explore different practice questions. And like I mentioned, you can just go to the IIA.org and find those online courses that are available now. In a corporate environment, again, we can have a self-study environment or instructor-led, either virtual or live. And there are volume savings on 5 or more CIA learning systems. So that's another option for internal audit shops that are needing at least 5 people certified. Your steps to success then, in terms of CIA exam preparation, you want to start by understanding your baseline level of knowledge and understanding and practical application of the topics in the exam syllabi. So this requires an assessment, and the learning system has a self-assessment tool. We'll talk about it in a moment. And then you'll want to study. And again, the critical mass here is scheduling your study time, making sure that you show up for your study appointments. You know, self-accountability is absolutely imperative to getting through this. It's all about you. It's all about your commitment to your CIA certification and, you know, showing up and getting it done. So you'll do your study, you'll be reading, you'll be doing practice quiz questions through the learning system. And then, of course, practice. You'll practice with those quizzes and tests that are found in the online tools and resources on learncia.com, which is an integral part of the IIA's CIA learning system. So in terms of the first step, in terms of the self-assessment, you will complete an online pretest, and this is going to show you where your strengths and weaknesses are, and it's going to help you to create your own personalized study strategy. So this is a great tool. You can see on the slide that it'll show the breakdown by section, breakdown by topics within the exam part, or the chapter within the exam part. And it's a great resource for you because it's going to show you where you need to spend your time. And I find that students oftentimes think that they're right on top of a particular topic, for example, quality assurance and improvement program. Well, they think they are, but once they start answering quiz questions and exam questions, they find out that maybe they're not so in tune with the language and the semantics and the exact words that are used in the IIA standards. And so they're missing questions because they don't know the lingo. And that's an imperative when you are taking your CIA exam. You need to understand the technical language of the internal audit profession. Second step then is to study. You want to customize your study strategy so you can follow a recommended path based on the results of your self-assessment and your pretest, or you can follow the exact order of the syllabus. So you can go right through chapter by chapter, topic by topic, you know, starting with part 1 and then doing part 2 and then part 3, or you can mix it up a bit. You know, it's entirely up to you. So you choose your study path and your strategy. You'll be using the reading materials. It's just like a college textbook. You can read online or you can download to your e-reader. You can get the printed books. They are available if you like to, you know, have the hard copy books so you can highlight and underline, you know, the old-fashioned way. Every topic within the exam syllabus is provided time estimates for you, an approximate amount of time that's going to be required to study each of the topics. The topics on the exam syllabi are presented in, again, micro-learning segments, and this is going to help you to study more efficiently. We find, people are so busy, and we find that very often people won't even break out any time in their calendar to study unless they have at least an hour or an hour and a half. That's kind of their optimal study time to really immerse themselves in the content. Well, you can find in these little micro-learning segments, you can capture a lot of knowledge and a lot of information by just hitting a topic for 15 or 20 minutes. So it really will make your study time more efficient. You won't be so tired. You'll be fresh each time you open up the learning system and you go in and you start to work on your studying. If you want more detail than is presented, then there are links within the content where you can link directly from the reading materials straight to the IIA guidance, straight to the standards and resources. Quizzes. So once you've gone through and done your reading and you have reviewed all of the content, all of the syllabus topics, then you can apply what you've learned and test your comprehension through the quizzes. This is a great tool in the learning system. It provides you with immediate feedback on whether or not you answered the question correctly. And it also provides you the rationale for the incorrect answers. So if you answered the question correctly, you'll get the little green bar with the rationale for why this answer is indeed the best answer. And you'll also have the explanation for why the answers that are not the best answer are not the best answer. And one thing that you need to realize about the IIA's CIA examinations is that very often there will be two correct answers. And your job is to select the best answer based on IIA standards and guidance. We all need to recognize that this is a global profession. Internal auditing is practiced all over the world. And this is a global certification exam. So in different cultures, in different regulatory environments, in different industries, the standards may be applied differently. So the standards are principles-based. They're not prescriptive. There's no recipe for success in internal audit. Internal auditing requires a lot of business knowledge, a lot of understanding of risk, understanding of business strategy, and it requires excellent judgment. So the CIA exam questions, again, there may be two or more correct answers, and your job is to choose the best answer based on standards and guidance. And I'll say it again, this is why it's an imperative that you get to know the IIA language, the semantics, the terminology, the definitions, so that when you're reading a question, you can understand the context of the question and relate it not to what you did 3 weeks ago on your last audit, but rather really driving home your knowledge and understanding and ability to apply the IIA standards and guidance. Okay, so that's a key takeaway from this session. Just be aware that you need to understand the language and that your job is to choose the best answer according to IIA standards and guidance. So again, here on the slide, you see that you're going to get that immediate feedback and rationale for why the best answer is the best answer and why the three other answer options, while they might be correct, maybe one or two of those could be correct in different scenarios, you're going to have a better understanding of why those answers are not the best answer. Another great tool in the IIA's CIA learning system is the flashcards and the glossary. I've had feedback from students over the years that the flashcards are a great learning tool. Being able to have the term or the terminology printed, actually, old school, printed on one side of the paper with the definition on the other side. Great learning tool, a great resource, particularly when you get into the Part 3 exam for some of those IT concepts and IT security concepts. A lot of that is terminology and definitions and really, memorization. So this is a great resource for you in terms of reinforcing terminology and definitions. Estimated study times. So these are just kind of general study times. Your Part 1 exam, you should expect to study at least 40 hours. Likewise for Part 2. For Part 3, you should expect to study 50 hours or more. And I just like to share my personal testimonial here when we get to this point in this presentation, because I was already a CPA. I was a licensed certified public accountant in California. I had worked in a public accounting environment and I had successfully passed those examinations. And I already knew audit methodology and I already understood risk and I had quite a lot of professional business experience before I pursued my CIA certification. And I really did it just to set an example for my team. I had started up a new internal audit function in a bank, and I wanted to be an example to my team. For Part 1 and Part 2, and if you recall when McKinsey went through the syllabi, you saw that Part 1 and Part 2 is really all about the attribute standards in Part 1. It's about independence and objectivity, having an internal audit charter. It's about proficiency and due professional care, our quality assurance and improvement program, and driving continuous improvement in the audit function, delivering value to our stakeholders, fundamentals of governance, risk, and control. And then the Part 2 examination is all about internal audit methodology, how we do the work. It's all about planning the work using a risk-based approach. It's about forming our scope and objectives for our audits and forming our audit engagement work programs, and then doing the test work and then reporting the results of the work, and then monitoring for management's remediation and ensuring, that we have a follow-up process to make sure that management is doing what they said they're going to do when we found those higher risk audit observations. So that's Part 1 and Part 2. For me, I already knew that stuff inside out. Now, I took a single day exam prep course. It was a live classroom at the time. So I had an 8-hour prep course for Part 1 and an 8-hour prep course for Part 2. And then I studied about 40 hours, 50 hours, 40 to 50 hours for both parts. And I took the exams on the same day. So I took my Part 1 and Part 2, took Part 1 in the morning and Part 2 in the afternoon, and I passed them both on the first attempt. But again, I had 8 hours of classroom for each part, and then about 40 to 50 hours of study for both parts. And I probably overstudied a little bit because I already knew how to audit. But again, I think many of us are wired, we don't like to fail. Auditors like for things to be right. We like to be compliant. We don't like to have to circle back and redo things. So anyway, that was my experience with Part 1 and 2. Now, Part 3, I am a baby boomer. So technology was very frightening for me. The IT and IT security topics were almost intimidating enough that I almost didn't even consider, really wrapping it up and earning my CIA certification because I was intimidated by the IT content in the Part 3 exam. So I studied closer to maybe 80, 90 hours for my Part 3 exam. Again, because I did not want to fail. And I passed my Part 3 on my first attempt as well. So if I can get through Part 3, anybody can get through Part 3. I absolutely believe that. And, instructing the CIA exam prep curriculum now for many, many years, I've learned a lot about information technology and risk and control and information security. But suffice it to say, when I took my Part 3 CIA exam, really what I knew was just what I learned through my study and preparation. So that's my experience. I believe for every one of you, your study experience and your time commitment is going to be different. It's going to be based on how recently you finished school. If you recently came out of university, you're used to studying, you're used to taking exams, and this is going to be easier for you than it would be for someone like me who, I'd been out of school for about, 16 or 17 years when I took my CIA examinations. So it was tough. It was tough to study and to comprehend and retain and get used to answering questions and do the time management thing and all of that. So it was a challenge. If you're working for an audit activity that very closely follows the professional practices framework and the IIA's standards and guidance, then you're going to have an advantage because you are performing your internal audit practice in accordance with the standards and the guidance. If you're working for a smaller audit shop or maybe a less mature audit activity, where maybe you have, pretty significant departures from the standards and guidance, this is a risk because you probably think that you are doing really high quality audit work, but you may not be following the standards and guidance at all. So, those are considerations on your own personal time commitment and what you should expect to invest in terms of time and energy to study and be successful. The CIA practice exam is one of the greatest advantages of the IIA's CIA learning system. Here you see the time clock ticking away on the bottom right-hand side of the practice question. You see the little white flag within the lighter blue color rectangle. This timed practice exam exactly mirrors the look and feel of the actual CIA examination experience. So, for example, this question, this must be a Part 1 exam question because you see you have 2 hours and I can barely make it out, 2 hours and 23 minutes or something down there on the bottom. So that means that if you have 2.5 hours to do the exam, that's a Part 1 exam question. Part 2 and Part 3 exams, the time allocation is 2 hours. So the practice exam, again, it looks exactly like your CIA examination experience will look. You're able to flag questions, and then at the end of your exam, you'll have a screen pop up that shows you all of the questions that you answered, all of the questions that you left unanswered, and there should not be any left unanswered. If you don't answer them, you have 0 chance of getting the question right, and those that you flagged. Very often, a subsequent question will trigger something in your mind, in your memory, that will help you with recall of the correct answer of a previous question that you may have flagged that you were uncertain about the answer. And it's perfectly fine to get to the end of the exam and have, 10, 15, 20% of your questions flagged. If you have managed your time where you're working, as you're practicing quiz questions, you want to be developing a rhythm of time management where you're taking no more than 1 minute per question. Absolutely no more than 1 minute per question. And what this will do for you, for example, in this instance on your Part 1 exam, where you have 125 multiple choice questions, and you have 150 minutes to answer those questions, if you've practiced your time management and you're using no more than 1 minute per question, then you'll get to the very end of your 125 questions and you'll be about 2 hours into the exam time allocation. And you'll still have nearly half an hour to circle back to all of those ones that you flagged and revisit them to see if perhaps something along the way in those exam questions, refreshed your memory, and now you can get that question answered exactly correctly. So this is a really good time management technique. This is, I'm a little confused by the bottom left on the slide where it says after submitting and receiving your score. Okay, right, in the CIA learning system where you are working the practice exam in the IIA's CIA learning system materials, after you have ended your exam, you have received your score, then you can go back and review all of the questions that you missed, or even those. I recommend, even if you're unsure of an answer to a question and you're lucky and you answer it right, you should still go back and review it. You should still take a look at that question. So it's a good idea to keep, tracking those and marking them on a separate piece of paper so you can go back and revisit the questions, making sure that, even though you got lucky and got it right, making sure that you did indeed have a very clear understanding of why the answer was the best answer. So here's a practice question. I'll give you about 45 seconds to answer this question. Which of the following fraudulent entries is most likely to be made to conceal the theft of an asset? Five seconds remaining. Okay, and the best answer is answer A, debit an expense and credit the asset that has been stolen. Now you may be thinking, well, this is an accounting question. It is an accounting question. This might be a Part 3 exam question, but you should know that fraud questions may be found in any one of the 3 parts, okay? Why? Because our standards tell us that every audit we do, in all of the work we are doing, we need to be considering fraud risk, okay? So Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, you might see fraud questions. In this instance, if you were to debit the answer, so I'm on answer B now, bravo, B, bravo. If you were to debit the asset that was stolen, you would be doubling up on the value of that asset that you have taken. So if you're a fraud perpetrator and you've stolen cash, Now you've doubled the cash that's in the general ledger. So you're going the wrong way, crediting another asset account. You have eliminated a different asset off of the books and records, and you've doubled the asset that you stole. Answer C, like Charlie, debiting a revenue account and crediting the asset. Yes, if I've stolen an asset, I want to credit it to get it off of the books. But by debiting a revenue account, that's going to stick out. That's going to be very obvious. And if I was an accountant or controller reviewing the books and records, I would say, well, how do we get a debit in a revenue account? So this requires understanding that revenue accounts carry a normal credit balance. And when we see debits to revenue accounts, that is bad accounting. That is not good accounting practice. So it would stick out. And this is a good example of an answer that could be correct. Answer C, like Charlie, could be correct. This is one way to conceal the theft of an asset. But if the fraud perpetrator is knowledgeable about accounting, this is not the best way to conceal the theft of an asset. The best way is answer A, running it through the profit and loss statement by debiting an expense account. Expense accounts carry normal debit balances, and this would look like a normal type of kind of transaction. That would be a good way to hide it. Debit and expense. And also we know that expenses have many, hundreds, if not thousands, or depending on the size of the organization and activities, there could even be hundreds of thousands of debits to expense accounts throughout the course of an accounting period or a year. Again, answer D, delta, debiting another asset account. That's just going to overinflate another asset on the balance sheet. And again, that's going to be a red flag to any reviewer. Okay. Study tips. Choose a study method that works for you. Be realistic about your time commitment. If you can't study 5 or 6 hours per week, then don't plan to, get this done in the next 4 or 5 weeks. It's going to take you some time. So be realistic about your time commitment. Calendar your study time, show up for your study appointments, make the commitment, and, make it happen for yourself. Don't procrastinate. Very often I have CIA candidates come to me and they say, I'm scheduled for my part 1 exam next Thursday. I've been studying, but I just don't feel ready. And I just suggest to you, think back about your college and university experience. Rarely did we ever feel like we were fully prepared for a final exam. At least that was my case. And I was a decent student. I rarely felt like, I'm going to ace this exam, no problem. So that inclination to procrastinate and delay your exam is not a good idea. What is a good idea is to calendar your study time, show up for your study appointments, be prepared, and when it's time for your exam, take your exam. At a minimum, even if you defer success, at least now you've had that examination experience, and that's going to eliminate a lot of anxiety when you go for your next attempt. Again, use those flashcards. Understand the application of the standards, not just the theory. You can't just memorize and be successful on these exams. I said, professional internal auditors, it requires a lot of judgment. So memorization in and of itself doesn't get it. Pay attention to the standards and the professional practices framework. You should be able to write an audit manual table of contents just from your recall of kind of the order of the standards and what an internal audit policy and procedure manual might look like. So that's a good way to test yourself on your knowledge of the information that you're going to be tested on at a really high level. A couple of test taking tips then. When you see an exam question that is very, very lengthy, very verbose, maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 sentences, read the last sentence that has the question mark at the end before you read all the details. That way, you know the question that is being asked. So read the very last sentence with a question mark first, then go back and read the details, and then reinforce the question again, so that you know what question is being asked. You know what you're expected to answer correctly. Look for the qualifiers in the exam questions. Words like most likely, least likely, except for, best option, all or not or never, those kinds of answers. Anticipate your answer before you read your answer choices. Think about what the answer is to the question that you're asking. You may be able to come up with it from your immediate recall. Again, global profession, it's a global examination. Internal audit is taught all over the world in all industries, in all regulatory environments. So if you've been an internal auditor in a financial services or banking environment, you need to think outside your box. You need to think very broadly and globally. Avoid analysis paralysis. Don't overanalyze. And that 1 minute per question time management rhythm will help you with that. Budget your time. Don't rush it. Be well rested. Eat a good meal. Be comfortable for your exam. All of the common sense kinds of things. One more question quickly. We only have 2 minutes left, and I know Mackenzie wants to talk with you a bit more. We'll give you just a few seconds. Keywords here: ultimate responsibility. Okay, ultimate responsibility. Remember, we have internal audit shops of only 2 or 3 people. We have internal audit activities that may have 150 or 200 people, but ultimately, the responsibility to ensure that engagement objectives are met is the responsibility of the chief audit executive. He or she is the leader of the audit function. So Mackenzie, you're up. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of the IIA's CIA learning system.
Thank you, Vicki. Yes, with just 1 minute left here, we want to share we have an exciting sale in the month of May. So if you are an IIA member, and if you're not, you can become one. But if you are an IIA member, you can take 20% off the learning system this month at learncia.com. And you can take 20% off your application and exam registration fees with code MAY20% in CCMS. We are really excited about our May sale, so please take advantage of that. You'll get the current price before the price increase plus the 20% discount. Before we send you on your way, again, just to recap, we have our sale this month, 20% off. Anyone looking for group discounts can contact Mike Downs. The email is on the screen. And we just want to let you know, once you earn your CIA, you do renew it every year with 40 hours of continued education. And with that, we will send you on your way. Have a wonderful day. And for a replay of this webinar, you can visit the link shown on the screen. Thanks, everybody.